Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, you better be glad that you didn't see him in his vampire face, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
It's like watching Pretty Blade.
and and his echolocation is all about fart reverberation, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear. Give me that fake blood that looks like Go-Gurt. That stuff looks tasty.
We are back, everybody. This week we went out to the movies and we saw Morbius, and I feel like I have to tell you that because according to the box office, it says you might not have known that this was actually out.
Which is surprising since every 30 seconds I kept getting inundated with commercials for it.
Yeah. And, not to mention that at my movie theater, they still had up the poster that said Morbius coming January 28th or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
They didn't even bother to put up new posters when it got delayed this last time. Because didn't they delay it like a week before it was coming out?
Yeah. Yeah, it was super close to coming out in January. And then they were like, you know what? No. We're going to go April in this.
And I don't know what disaster they think they averted by moving it to April 1st, but I don't think any disaster was averted.
No, I think that just releasing it was probably where the disaster part comes in.
Oh, we don't want to show our hands too soon.
Domestic gross for this bad boy, $39 million. And it wasn't like 39 and change. It was like just over 39. So that's pretty rough with 84 worldwide. So, if those of you who haven't seen Morbius, stick around. We have a review here for you and figure out whether or not you ought to go back out there and see that. But before we do that, we do want to say a big thank you to the people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Doesn't matter what level you support at, you get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and of course, we get to vote on a movie that we watch every month. And we thank you guys last week for all, or coming up soon. We got more of these votes. Let's go to our top supporters here up in the icon category. We got Matthew, Tim, Alex, Brian, and Tim. There we go. My brain's not working today. Derek, Matthew, Tim, and Alex, you guys are up in there, as well as Brian D, Dave Fake Loney, Jens, Jessica Berry, Nate, Noah. You guys, thank you guys so much for that. And we also have a little thing from Noah as well. Let me pull this up here. Noah wrote in. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do this then.
Fails here.
It's been a minute since I used that. He writes in, wanted to say hi and let you guys know how much I love this show and Dinger Zone episodes. Listening to you guys talk is like hanging with some good friends. You guys take on the movies and shows is great, but I also love the random dad-to-dad banter. The in-depth knowledge and fun side stories are wonderful. You guys have quickly become my favorite podcasts and something to look forward to on Monday mornings. I've tried to bring the same energy and fun to my own podcast, How We Seize It. That's with 3 E's, boys and girls, where me and my best friend and I discuss movies and shows, plus we pair cocktails to them. Anyways, just wanted to say that I am a proud Patreon executive producer. So until Mr. Stallone files a restraining order for one Sweet Shawnzy from the internet, HMP will be my go-to of choice. That's from Noah Hardwired Overton. P.S. Nothing against the HMP nickname Bruce gave me, but I would love to hear what Sean would come up with. Question mark.
So what nickname did I give him?
Hardwired.
That's a great nickname.
Of course.
That's a G.I. Joe. That's a G.I. Joe code name. Hardwired.
Oh yes,
it's pretty good. I'll come up with something. Noah, give me a week.
We'll put that on the back burner. And if you would like to be like Noah and all the other fine people that support this show over at patreon.com/HMP, we really appreciate all of you fine folks coming in every month with all of this. And of course, without you, we wouldn't be going as strong as we are this many episodes later. Thank you guys so much. And if you can't do that, please at least go over, drop us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever your podcatching thing of choice is that will allow you to leave a review. Thank you guys so much for that. All right, let's get into it, boys and girls. Here is the trailer for Morbius.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor. I should have died years ago. People all over the world have my disease.
Amir.
To find a cure, we have to push the boundaries, take the risks. If you're gonna run, do it now.
People are strange.
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
When you're a stranger,
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
faces look ugly. When you're alone.
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever.
It worked.
Not exactly. I have increased strength and speed and some form of bat radar. What else can I do?
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me who wants to hunt and consume blood.
Michael.
When you're strange, faces come.
Can you control it?
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
The other half wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike, you and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save a life, but I don't know what I'm capable of.
You save lives, you don't take them. Are you here to heal the world? Or to destroy it? Who the hell are you, Matt?
I know. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Morbius out in theaters. Now, it's interesting with that trailer. I've never found trailers to be more like the movie and unlike the movie at the exact same time, because there are things in the trailer that are not in the movie, and yet, while listening to that, you go, that's exactly what I suspect that movie to be. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do we got?
Morbius the Living Vampire was created by a solid duo, writer Roy Thomas and artist Gil Kane. He first appeared as a villain in The Amazing Spider-Man number 101 in 1971, but due to his sympathetic backstory, he made a smooth transition to eventually becoming a tortured protagonist. The comics coded banned vampires initially, but when it relaxed its stance on bloodsuckers, Stan Lee ordered a vampire villain for the number one selling Marvel hero, Spider-Man. Now, initially, the obvious choice was Dracula, but then the creative team decided, heck, why not try something new? Also, not wanting to push the comic code too hard, instead of a traditional undead vampire, they tried the novel idea of a living vampire. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a vampire if you didn't have to die first? Now, as far as influences go, Roy Thomas claims that there is no relationship to Dr. Morbius from the Forbidden Planet movie. It's just a coincidence that the two characters share a name. But Gil Kane said the resemblance to a Hollywood celebrity was no accident, as he modeled Morbius's look after Jack Palance. Now, Gil, how do you think that makes Jack Palance feel?
Not great.
What if somebody told you that you look like a living vampire? I bet you wouldn't think that was very nice at all. Marvel's own description of Morbius refers to him as ugly and unpleasant looking, and not just because he's Greek. Sorry, Nia Vardalos, star of My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and you too, George Papadopoulos, adoptive father of Webster. But you guys own mirrors. You both know you're better looking than Jack Palance. And speaking of better looking than Jack Palance, Adam, do you have a list?
If there's anything I ever hung my hat on. If that comic connection wasn't enough for you, let me sell everybody on this Johnny-come-lately comic book film, because this movie's got everything. We've got Jared Leto. We've got skinny Jared Leto, buff Jared Leto, vampire Jared Leto. We also got The Last Great Doctor and Matt Smith, CGI bats galore, the overachieving smart kid trope, the medical genius stricken with a disease only he can cure, but is the cure worse than the disease? But the cure will come at what cost trope? We have a ticking fake blood bomb, the God tier Casio W-217H-1AVCF watch at an MSRP of $19.99. We've got shooting, biting, jumping, phasing, hard, hand cutting, CGI transforming, a score you'll never remember, and a story that you'll forget the second you walk out of the theater and get into your car. But you'll walk away with this fact: a caregiver who sees you through from adoption to college graduate, and they say orphanages need more money. Pshaw, this movie's got everything.
Oh man, you took a weird takeaway from that.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't know why that happened.
Takeaway from Morbius, the living vampire, is that orphanages are overfunded.
Yep, write it down.
You're waiting wonders. That explains why I kept waiting for what you were talking about at the beginning with him being modeled after Jack Palance. Why I kept waiting for Morbius to say, "You're my number one guy."
I wanted him to do a one-arm push-up. That's all.
And of course, with that nose, of course, that's who drew it.
Of course. So we are all of one mind when it comes to new movies. Like, we want them to be good.
Yes, we so want them all to be fantastic. It is not worth our time and effort to do all of this.
And this is not one of those good movies. But one of the things that I've been noticing is just the unbelievable hatred that is thrown upon this movie. And it's bad, but it's not the worst movie we've ever seen.
Okay, I'm glad we're going to go straight here to the point you just brought up, because I want to defend it a little bit. Like, it is getting unnecessary hate. Like, it is definitely not anything pushing the boundaries. It's not anything new or amazing, but it's also like, we've seen much worse movies than this.
We saw a much worse movie last week.
We've seen much worse movies than this get better Rotten Tomatoes ratings than this too. Like we've reached a point where, for a movie being okay, just isn't good enough if it's a comic book movie now.
Well, I think the other reason why there's so much hate on this is because of the star of this movie. And, I
think you're right.
Having Jared Leto be the star of your movie, you've already got one tick against you, because even before everybody knew who Jared Leto was, Jared Leto is so pretty as a man that immediately some dudes, and it's mostly dudes who are going to try to watch this movie anyway.
Yeah.
There's some dudes who just immediately are like, I hate that guy.
Yeah, he's too pretty. You don't want him anywhere in there.
Then you pile on top of that all of his stupid shenanigans on Suicide Squad when he was the Joker, and he's sending dead rats to people and stuff, and used condoms, and you add that upon already that he is a very pretty boy. And so now you have...
Oh, you forgot the rock star portion as well, because you got a lot of
cult leader thing.
You got a lot of that stuff going on, and there's videos out there where and he does this every show from what I'm to understand, stops the show in the middle of everything and points out a supposed person who's not standing up and rocking out and all this stuff, and stops you got to get up. You got real D-baggy kind of rock star sort of stuff, and I'm to understand he does it at every show.
Well, that's
I thought his shows had really turned into cult meetings, though, where he wears the white flowing gouns, and everybody in the audience has to wear the matching gowns.
I would not be surprised. You look at him and you wouldn't be surprised if he ran a good looking cult. You know what I'm saying? Just hey, look,
not one of them ugly cults,
right? Because
he got no time for no ugly cult.
The guy that ran Heaven's Gate,
Southern California cult, if I've ever seen it. Imagine that ain't no Indianapolis cult.
The Heaven's Gate cult guy, if he looked like him, it'd be unbelievable. They'd have had 1 million people go. Just he seems to know what he's talking about.
He's real handsome. Reeboks on Earth if he had started having
So this movie already had the deck stacked against it, and then you add upon that the fact that this is not a good movie. I mean, it's not terrible, it's not, but it's not good.
Well, the delay after delay after delay, it's eventually, if it was as it is now, if that was a Band-Aid that you could have ripped off 9 months ago, you probably wouldn't have felt so bad about it.
Well, and I have a crackpot theory on that. I think that and we can get into it later or talk about it now. You know what? Let's talk about it now.
Let's talk about it now. This is not a movie that we need to hold key parts for later in the conversation.
Totally agree. So I think that because there are two factors to this movie. One is that it feels completely over edited. And I think that that's from tinkering from the studio, where like there's whole scenes that it feels like are cut in half. It feels like they wanted this movie to be rated R at one point, and they took that away as well. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a feeling of you know what, we're going to do this. No, we're going to do this instead. Like, think of all of the things that you see in the trailer for this movie that aren't in this movie. It immediately tells me, oh, they wanted to go a completely different route, kind of like your original Suicide Squad movie, where like, oh, we had this one movie, we don't want that, we want this other movie. And so that's basically what we're looking at with Morbius, I believe. I think that the other version probably also isn't good, but it feels like, there's no blood in this movie, like for a movie about vampires. Are you kidding me? What are we doing?
Like the fake blood even is that weird sky blue, Carolina blue color. So it doesn't even look like blood for the most part.
And that's purposeful. And I understand that if you're making a PG-13 movie, I totally understand that. But the fact that there's literally no other blood anywhere, like that's pretty ridiculous. And it's one of the massive problems of this movie. But there's whole scenes where like, let's talk about the award. So he wins that award, and instead of him going up on stage and talking about winning this award and how he doesn't want this award, it cuts to him in a lab somewhere.
Yeah, like I thought he accepted the award. I was all lost when they said he didn't accept it. Like, why do you go all the way to Sweden and put on a bow tie and not accept the award?
Yeah, it just goes cram it with walnuts. I'm out of here. Thanks.
It's because the scene was cut. That is why. Like there is so much of this movie that is somewhere else. It definitely wasn't in the movie I saw. And when you hear about the tinkering of like Oscorp was supposed to be in it. Now that's not in it. And there was something else that was supposed to be in it, and that's taken away too.
In trailers, no less, with things like Oscorp, it was like on buildings, and like other different references to Spider-Man that were in this movie were edited out, CGI'd out.
I feel like this movie was in different parts of the multiverse at different parts of its development.
I totally agree with you. And it also feels like this movie was supposed to come out before the last Spider-Man movie.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a running up to. And so you have like, if I'm remembering this correctly, there's a poster or something that says, "Where is Spider-Man?" in the trailer. Am I remembering that right?
It's something like that. There's a Spider-Man poster.
I thought it was,
maybe it says murder or something.
I thought it was like graffiti on the wall that they digitally took out, because the exact scene it was in, Silas went to see the movie with me and he pointed out, they took that out because he remembered he studies these trailers like I don't know, like some
kind of Zapruder film.
Yeah, exactly. Like an academic studying remnants from ancient Egypt, trying to figure out what's going on.
I remember feeling that way too in my youth, being like, oh man, I got to really break this down.
What are they trying to say? And now the internet just does it for me. And I go look on YouTube and I'd be like, thanks, guy, for doing all of my homework for me.
There's nothing more motivated than a 14-year-old who loves Spider-Man. I'll just tell you that right now.
Oh, I would imagine.
So, he is not good in it. Leto is not great in it. Is
he bad though?
No,
he's that bad.
That's what I'm trying to get to here, is that it's not a performance where you're laughing at what he's doing. It's just not great.
But what exactly, what does he have to do? What's he given to work with? It's not a lot. Like the script itself is just like, it's not really there. You never care about this character in any way, shape, or form. We see him as, the flashback to the kid and stuff. Sure, he's smart. He's got a debilitating disease and everything. But that's about it. We don't really...
I think my biggest complaint about Jared Leto's performance here would just be that I feel like he probably takes himself in real life a little too seriously, and that translates to him taking his role just a little too seriously. Because imagine how bad that first Venom movie, which is not a good movie. The script for the first Venom movie is not any better than the script for this. Well, Tom Hardy was willing to look ridiculous, and that made it fun. It made it so bad it's good.
And that's my point when it comes to Venom, is that those Venom movies 1 and 2, they're not great movies, but they're fun.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about Morbius at all.
Now,
it's a slog.
I kind of did have a little fun with it. I think I might be the biggest defender of it. And I'm not like saying it's a great movie, but I'm saying like middle of the road movie. When I think of other stuff I've watched, I think it had cool visuals. At least to me, I like the visuals in the movie. I like when he's moving around and the little wisps of mist are around him. I kind of like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer looking makeup or whatever that they gave Matt Smith when he became a vampire. I like Matt Smith. Yeah. I like the action. I didn't find myself getting bored very much other than what I'd call the third quarter of the movie. I did get a little bored in that third quarter, but the first half and the last quarter, I was fine with it. And like I was saying before, I think we've gotten to a point where just being okay isn't good enough anymore. But like if this was straight to Netflix, I would have thought this is one of the better straight to Netflix movies. And I don't want to step too much on top of what we're going to be talking about on the Dinger Zone, but this, I think of how crazy people were for The Crow when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
If this had come out then, people would be crazy for this. This is that emo, dark vampire character.
But that was my point in the pre-show, is that I think that this movie feels like a movie from another time.
Yeah, I think I can't disagree with that. And that's where being okay just doesn't seem to be good enough for people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even if this was like not a Marvel property, people would have given it a little more leeway. But I don't know. I get the biggest explanation that works for me is what you said, is it kind of comes back on Leto, and people just don't like Leto right now.
Let's do a thought experiment here, because instead of Jared Leto, right? Let's say you don't have him in your movie. Let's say he's not Morbius. Let's say it is a complete unknown. Does this movie get the hate that it currently has if it's someone we've never seen before?
I don't think so. Maybe if it's somebody that's never been seen before, though, then that kind of gets the hate also. I just wonder, like, what if it was somebody that people kind of love, but I don't know who that would be. Like, who do you put in there? Like, if instead of Jared Leto, let's just say, let's just use the Joker phenomenon. Instead of Jared Leto, if this had been Joaquin Phoenix, you're going to get an interesting performance.
Yes.
And then I think people don't crap on it. Even if it's a bad movie, then suddenly I think there's some people acting like it's better than it is.
Mm-hmm. Or Denzel Washington's kid that's in everything now. Like if he
Isaiah.
was Morbius.
Yeah, I think his name is Isaiah. That would be kind of cool. But then you get a whole nother kind of review bombing going on.
Well, sure. But Morbius isn't one of those characters where everyone, you have like these, like just massive amounts of people.
You're going to get people online. Morbius is supposed to look like Jack Palance. What are you doing?
That should be an exit poll with everybody, like a Metacritic exit poll of what do you think of the movie? And do you know who Jack Palance is?
I had enough. I thought it was fine enough. My son who went to see it with me, his biggest complaint was just that they didn't have an actual Marvel villain for Morbius to fight. They kind of created this whole new character of Milo.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a new character, but yeah,
I thought it was a new character.
No, it's from the comics.
Okay, well then that's one that got past both me and Silas there. That if that's a character from the comics,
he's got a different name. He's got a different name, but I can't remember what the comic book character's name is, but it's not cut out of whole cloth.
But I really like that dynamic, and I think if Jared Leto had a little more creative input, maybe there's a version 2 where the two of them are in love. Where Milo and Otis here are in love with each other, because I kind of felt that coming through in the performance at times. And that would have been something that a more artistic film would have been willing to roll into, and maybe not a Columbia Pictures tentpole.
Well, and we certainly don't feel anything between him and the actress. I'm sorry, I can't remember the character's name or her name, because it doesn't mean that much in the whole movie. But she was just there, and then we kind of vampirize her at the end, and and that's about it. But like I don't know anything about her. I don't even know her name. It's just that kind of
and
you're just
Martine.
a placeholder. Martine, that's it. And that's a great, again, horrible name.
Martine Clementine or something. But also with that ending, Man, she looked like a Bancroft, like Anne Bancroft Jr.
I don't think so.
I don't know what Anne Bancroft looks like.
Obviously.
I've just heard the name before.
She don't look like that.
And I think this is one that it's fair to jump around to the ending. But boy, he had 2 capsules to kill 2 vampires, and he was going to use one for Milo and one for himself. But if she had turned more quickly and then he had to kill Milo and her at the same evening, and that's why he's stuck with this torture of being a living vampire, I think that would have had more artistic or narrative merit to it. But still, I enjoyed the fighting. I enjoyed him getting out of the jail when he was there. I really liked Matt Smith's performance. I thought there was enough here to make this just a good enough popcorn movie. I'm shocked at how much people hated it. Like, what were they expecting? A Sony Spider-Man spin. I mean, they've seen Venom.
Just
right?
look at executive producer Avi Arad. That's literally all you have to see.
Yeah,
and you know what you're getting into.
Once that name hit the screen, you're at the end. You're just like, all of this makes so much more sense now. The world is right with its place, and you know what's going to be outside when you leave the theater, because it is the same as it ever was.
Have you guys ever noticed how much that Jared Harris looks like Richard Harris?
A little
Are they
bit.
related?
They are. It's his son.
Oh, okay. I would have thought. I didn't know how old either of them were, so I would have thought younger brother.
Isn't it great though? Like
he's great. I love that guy. I know I've seen him in other stuff, but I love him. I love the guy.
And he's the better Jared on the show.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Jared Leto is going to have a career trajectory where he is sort of like nobody wants anything to do with him for a few years and he gets humbled a little bit, that he has like a strong comeback?
I think what's going to end up happening is sort of the audience manipulation that happened with Tom Cruise, where, after everybody kind of figured out, oh, Tom Cruise is nuts. Tom Cruise, basically everything he was in after that, you'll know he doesn't have a romantic interest. You don't know anything about his character other than he works really hard.
Yeah,
and he's constantly running, and he does all his own stuff.
He pokes fun at himself more.
Yes,
that's definitely for sure.
And I believe because Jared Leto is pretty savvy. He's been in this since he was a child. He's pretty savvy with what I clearly need to get some. I need to get my public persona scrubbed a bit here. So he's gonna bring in the right people and have that happen.
And maybe he'll stick with the roles where he uglies it up, like he did for that assassin of John Lennon movie.
Well, I mean, even the Gucci last movie? Thing he was in, the House of Gucci. I mean, he uglied it up there too, and he probably would be my guess. But the other part to this is also that he kind of. He was always the pretty kid. And then everybody kind of was like, oh, he's different than I thought. And when he's in Fight Club, because they just beat him relentlessly in that movie. Yeah. And it was just the best casting you could ever have in that role, because, like when 30% of the audience looks at a person and goes, I just want to beat the living crap out of that person. Like that's a really great
with
casting
the
choice.
Blonde hair and everything, which apparently I think was his choice, was to come in with all this blonde crap, and he was
so good.
And Fincher was like, what is this? All right, I guess this is what we're doing now.
Sure. Guys, let's punch Jared. No need to pull him. I feel like he's stuck in a certain zone of crazy where he needs to either be more crazy or less crazy. Like he either needs to become a little more sane like Robert Downey Jr. did and come around to sanity, or he needs to go full Crispin Glover, Nick Cage. Like he's stuck kind of in between right now.
It depends on how much he wants to work, because if he wants to continue working, then he basically needs to go the Nick Cage route. Crispin Glover, not so much, because people didn't know what to expect from him, like coming to physical altercations, things like that. So it like more the Nick Cage route. However, I think that he right now is in that stasis of like a Mark Wahlberg, where Mark Wahlberg believes he's a much bigger deal than he actually is. He stars in a whole lot of movies, but no one is looking at those movies he's starring in and going, man, he is just the best. I love that guy. Like for the most part, he's stuck in one spot. And that's where Jared Leto is too, where like, look, you're only going to get this far unless something changes. And if he's fine with where he's at, then good for him. You know, I mean, the fact that we're talking about him way more than this crummy movie.
Yeah. And he's still getting high profile roles. I mean, what motivation would there be for him to change anything as long as he's still getting these large, he's getting House of Gucci, he's getting Morbius. If the roles dry up a little bit, then maybe we'll see a change.
I still like to think that his actual personality is exactly like the personality of his character in Panic Room, with the
with the cornrows,
and everything, and just pretty much catching himself on fire.
The guy has had a long career. It's easy to forget about some of that.
There's
stuff.
a lot of really good stuff in there. He's just he's just a kooky McCookerson.
Yes.
Did he get an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club Best Supporting or something?
Yes, he did. Yeah. And he deserves it.
Yeah, it was very good
in that.
Very good.
But I wonder if that's when he really started taking himself seriously.
No, he was gone way before then.
Okay.
He was a nut job way back.
He's got another, in my head, what is a very big project, which is the 2025 Tron movie that's coming up.
Oh, we're attempting that again, are we?
Well, I mean, he was in the last one. Like, it would make sense.
I didn't know he was in the last one. I barely remember that last one.
I've forgotten most of that on purpose.
I like the last Tron movie. I think, well, of course, I'm in the bag for that movie, but also has one of the best soundtracks of all time. But
I agree with that.
But I think what's going to have to happen with him is that he needs to have one of those things happen where, like, yeah, look, I'm not a normal guy. I know I'm bug nuts. It's fine. You know what I mean? I'm still someone who's safe to be around. Like, that's basically what he needs to do if he's going to continue on this trajectory.
Yeah, like maybe a role where he pokes
safe to be around.
Yeah, no, but like for real though, like a role that kind of really, just takes it out of him a little bit. That we can poke fun at him, we can laugh a little bit, and if he knows that he's the butt of the joke, the world will turn on him real quick and go like, "Oh, I'm okay with that."
Grossman moment, right?
Exactly. He needs that point where he's just like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing is kind of stupid. You're allowed to laugh at me. I'm in on the joke. We're all having fun together." That's what'll bring him back into the light where people will be like, "Oh, I'll go see a vampire movie with that guy. He seems like he's fun to be around." Jared Leto don't seem to be fun to be around.
Who is Les Grossman?
Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder.
Oh, I see.
The movie producer.
Because that was his. That
With
was
the
one
fake
of the,
hands.
That was the big one where everybody was just like, "Oh snap! Tom Cruise is back," because he could poke fun at himself, and he just said, "This isn't what I normally do, but I'm willing to do it to kind of get in everyone's good graces again," and he did.
Man, remember when they were talking about doing a spin-off movie of that character?
Oh
what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Be a TV show on HBO
but
Max.
Everybody, let's settle down.
Well, let's wrap that back into this, because this is clearly what Sony's thing is like, if the email hacks for Sony didn't teach us anything, I don't think that they did, because all of these like emails came out where we heard the stupidest ideas in the world, like Men in Black meets 21 Jump Street. That was a real
idea. I think that's a great idea.
That was a real thing that they were considering over there, and then they came out and all the Sinister Six crap.
I would much rather see a Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover than Men in Black International.
I was about to say, you didn't see that Men in Black International, did you? Because that movie was terrible.
I've never seen it. I won't ever see it.
Well, good for you.
The just the thought of having that crossover of two things that probably shouldn't cross over, it's got a real Archie vibe to it to me.
But
like Archie meets Predator, that kind of thing.
Yes, that kind of thing.
But if it was, that's the problem though, is Sony is the one that's actually doing it, and so that's where it's going to go off the rails and then blow up.
But Adam, you know as much as I do when it comes to this, like they're going to throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. Like, what do we have? It's sort of the same. It's sort of that same thing where like, can we make another Die Hard movie? Like that kind of thing where like, it's just like, what if John McClane from Die Hard meets the Predator? You know, like they're just
Ooh,
throwing
yes.
stuff. They're throwing stuff at each other to see if there's an idea there.
What if John McClane meets Morbius?
Hey, listen, anything would add a little bit of spice to this movie.
So it's now a good time to talk about Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think he is happy about being in this movie?
Not after what I saw in this movie, and considering the trailers as well. I don't know how long he spent. He looks like we're in bare minimum 2 locations, maybe 3. Let's just say he did a long stint and did an entire week there. I'd be mad.
I would say that he didn't even. I
don't think
he worked.
I'm just being.
He
generous.
worked less than 3 days on this show.
Yeah, I was being.
And
generous.
part of that was just VO. Like that last part where he shows up in full costume. There's no Michael Keaton.
No, he's not in that at
there.
all.
He's
That's
not
VO.
there.
He's not in that suit.
If he was there, the mask comes off like Iron Man.
Exactly.
Yes.
It would open right up and there's his face. But no, sirree, Bob. None of that.
It's gonna join the rich tradition of the Green Lantern set up a sequel in your credits that nobody's ever gonna see.
Dude, it feels like that though, doesn't it?
Look, the problem that I have with this is that it makes absolutely no sense within its own crap. You know, like you have to work on your own BS. And this doesn't even work on its own BS because it makes sense why all of those villains go to the last Spider-Man universe, because that was the spell that was made.
Right.
It makes no sense at all why Michael Keaton's Vulture character would go to a different universe.
Well, spells work differently in Sony only productions.
Where they make literally no sense at all. Yes, I agree.
It's way back in the in the appendix there. There's a little asterisk. You got to go back and look up that lasting part of the
And do you think there's enough? Do you think that they'll actually be able to sign Keaton for a Sinister Six movie? Is he already signed? Like, do they put this stinger on here if they don't already have him under contract?
I think that they are learning the error of their ways here. I think that they know that something needs to change immediately if that's going to happen. I think that if you're going to have a Sinister Six movie, you're going to need aspects of each universe. I don't think Morbius is going to be in that Sinister Six.
Don't?
I don't think that. I think that there's aspects to each universe would be great, but at your lead, you've got to either have the Green Goblin or you've got to have Keaton's Vulture, because those are the only 2 people who could.
I think you're right. I think it's got to be Keaton. I don't even know that they're going to get Willem Dafoe. I think it's got to be Keaton, and Venom is the fandom they're hoping that drives it. So I think it's going to be like a Michael Keaton as the Vulture and Hardy's Venom. And then Morbius, like a purely CGI Morbius, gets killed the first day of the first mission. You know, kind of like Ripcord or whatever his name was in that first Suicide Squad movie.
Right.
But at the same time, too, we also have, looks like they're shooting the, Kraven the Hunter movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Right.
Oh, man.
So that's going to be a thing, which, again, I'm like, Kraven the Hunter is a Spider-Man villain, all about it. Why does Kraven the Hunter need his own movie? I sure shooting couldn't tell you. Same thing as I couldn't tell you for Morbius. I'm like, who's asking for this?
This is all happening because that first Venom movie that everybody knew was terrible made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So now they're like, terrible doesn't mean that we can't make this movie. Like, they took the wrong message away from the success of that first Venom movie. Basically, they've gotten to the point where I am sometimes in life that like everything is random, so just do it all and hope one of these things pay off.
I'm wondering too if there's going to be a shift of ideas at Sony, only because they have something very big on their hands with Into the Spider-Verse, and you know the 2 guys who are in charge of that seem to know what they're doing. Like, why don't you put them in charge of your Sony Marvel verse?
Yeah.
I think there's still these weird, I don't know if you call it biases. There's still these weird things though in Hollywood. And it's like animation is looked down on, even though the story's better and the money's better, you know, and it's like forever, like the way TV was looked down on, even though TV could oftentimes be better and definitely make more money. And I think there's still some holdouts, like animation guys. They don't want to trust them with their grown-up stuff, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have,
And they forget that Feige came from animation.
yeah, a lot of these guys did, and even but Avi Arad did too. And so look at where we are. We're still stuck in the same old garbage that we've always kind of been stuck in with this.
But I think Avi Arad's name pops up on this stuff because he was involved in that initial contract where the rights came from Marvel to Sony. I doubt that they let him. I mean, they probably let him say whatever he wants, but they all put their fingers in their ears while he's talking.
I like to think that he comes in and then just tinkers around in the edit bay when ain't nobody looking.
Just Guys, we haven't even talked about one of the major people in this movie. Tyrese.
Oh my God! I've totally forgot.
I loved it when he showed up. I had to ask myself, is that Roman? Is this a secret tie-in to Fast and Furious? Like Roman?
I totally forgot Tyrese was in this movie.
Oh yeah, he's in it for when you see him walk on screen at first, because it is in the first couple of minutes, you're like, wait a minute, what are we doing now? Tyrese is a policeman.
I know Roman is here, and I got to tell you, my favorite performance out of this whole film was the guy that plays his partner.
He was a lot of fun.
His partner. I love that guy.
Al Madrigal.
Yeah, he's wonderful in this movie.
That's another one where it's called when you get, good comedians to come up there and improvers and stuff to go and do these types of roles, you're going to get some good stuff out of it. And that's a key example.
I want that guy to be like the linchpin of the Sony Spider-Verse. I want Madrigal to be their Phil Coulson.
But that's what we kind of need a little bit more in this, is a little bit more kind of on the humor side and everything. Bring stuff into that. That's what kind of worked for the Venom movie, is that there was a lot of just like stupid stuff in there, but it was always kind of like laughing and just going like, yeah, this is dumb, whatever.
And the Venom movie kept moving. You didn't have a chance to get bored, which is the unforgivable crime a movie can commit. You can be bad as long as you're not boring. And I didn't really get bored in this except for that third quarter a little bit. So that's why I'm kind of surprised at just how bad the hate is on this. I mean, did you guys get bored in this movie very much?
I did. I did, because they just kept cutting scenes where, we don't care about any of these people at all. The one thing you can say about the first Venom movie is, Eddie Brock is like, he's in it,
yeah.
All of his problems, everything that he's going through. I couldn't tell you, with the exception of Michael Morbius is a very smart guy who's got a very rare disease that he needs to fix. I couldn't tell you anything else about that character.
He likes staring and looking and thinking.
I think part of the problem is the nature of that character is he's an individual, kind of a loner. So it just doesn't make him as interesting as somebody like Eddie, who's got an ex who's getting ready to remarry, and you're going through, it kind of has that Ant-Man dynamic there with the relationship.
And, that's the other part to that first to Venom, is that they don't take any easy way out. It's a dumb movie, but, the guy that she's going to marry isn't a jerk. He tries to help Eddie, there's all of that stuff there. Whereas it is paint by numbers for this script.
And what I've heard some people say that worked kind of well with Venom, maybe it was the sequel, but it's really a love story between Eddie and the symbiote.
Oh, that's a good point.
And I think if they had leaned into this being a little bit more of a love story between Michael and Milo, that it might have worked a little bit better. You might have felt some more emotional consequences with the way it turned out, but they didn't want to fully commit to that.
And it would have been something different. And God forbid we get something different in one of these.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to our final review here and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how does this Sony disaster relate back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Hey, Mr. Stallone. It's Sweet Chauncey from the internet, and this week I'd like to talk to you about one of the stunt drivers for Morbius, a guy named Scott Burrick. He's been in 262 different projects and has only started working since the mid-2000s, so he's a very busy man. It turns out that he worked on stunts in the movie Creed 2, which you starred in, and as I understand it, you have a writing credit on. That's amazing. I wonder how much of a writing credit that actually is when it comes to you, though, Mr. Stallone. But I'd like to talk about the fact that Scott Burrick did stunts for my favorite comedy show of all time, that show being 30 Rock. I didn't even know the show needed stunts, but they did, and Scott Burrick worked on it. Now, if you've never seen the show, it's basically The Muppet Show, but instead of being run by a frog puppet, it's run by a lady from Pennsylvania. Donald Glover was a writer. Its first season, it was up against another show about the exact same topic, and no one ever talks about that other show ever. 30 Rock is the last TV show I can remember laughing at so hard it hurt, and also it's a show I could never write. There's too many jokes, too many plot lines, too many characters, and the show's head writer was Tina Fey, who is someone you worked with when you were on Saturday Night Live. The only sketch I can remember from that show you were on was when Norm Macdonald got hit by a car and was dying. And when you showed up at the scene, all he wanted to talk about were the terrible movies you were in. It's a great sketch, and you seem to have a good sense of humor about it. But I'm going to keep this one short this week because I know you're busy, and no one wants to hear me go on and on about a show that hasn't been on TV for 10 years, like when Adam starts talking about aspect ratio, or Bruce when he tries to crowbar in an Alan Moore reference. Your connection to Morbius is stunt performer Scott Burrick. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Well, over here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast, right there at the top of the screen. But before we give our review, let's go over to our folks at patreon.com/HMP and see what these guys thought about Morbius. Nate says, way better than I feared and better than the New Mutants, which was the comparable pushback to Purgatory.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. It is a lot better than New Mutants. I think that New Mutants is probably the worst, like, new within the last 5 years, new movie that's come out when it comes to a superhero property. Wouldn't you guys agree? Like, big
I think
budget.
that last X-Men movie was pretty bad.
Oh, you're right. That's really bad also.
Yeah.
And you know what? While we were, I totally forgot to bring up Corey Johnson, because Corey Johnson is in Morbius also. You guys don't know him from the name, but you know him from, he's in the first two Hellboy movies.
Oh, cool.
He's the guy who gets the plugs in his hair. He's the FBI agent.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And Hellboy walks by and goes, nice plugs, and that guy, it's kind of crazy how many superhero movies that guy's in, because he's in, like I said, he's in both the Hellboy movies. He's also in I'm trying to look it up here. He's in Kingsman.
Oh.
He's in let me come up with one more. Just so I
it looks like he's going to be in the upcoming Batgirl.
He's in X-Men First Class. I mean, he's in Kick-Ass. He's in a bunch of stuff. And he's just one of those guys where, he kind of floats around in the background. He doesn't have a big role, but he is in, it's almost like he's starting the Corey Johnson universe, where he's playing almost the same character in everything he does. It's really, really interesting. And I couldn't believe he popped up in something again. I couldn't believe it.
Nate goes on, he says, it kind of ended abruptly, but I appreciate that more than dragging the story out another 20 minutes. I also liked it about as much as either of the Venom movies. Damian Wayne for me. Kevin says...
Wow, Damian Wayne.
Yeah, Damian Wayne for him.
Wow.
Rocket Face says, every time I saw Matt Smith at his vampire get-up, all I could think of was Jim Carrey's In the Mask. The movie was had a very meh ending. Thing was pretty much bad, fast / slow motion CGI. Gave me a headache. Also felt much longer than it actually was. I'll agree with that. Kevin says, I want to see the original cut for this film before Sony came in and gutted it for whatever crap they're moving towards with these extra scenes. Sony stripped it down to we have to put this movie out, but we've rethought our whole direction cut, and it was a massive disservice to this character and everyone involved. Kevin, woo. Killing him over here. And then Joe says, man, you guys earned my subscription this week. Woof. Sony could not pay me enough to watch this dumpster fire. I did hear about one of the end credits, and it retroactively makes my grade for No Way Home a battered and bloody and peed on Jason Todd. Sony doesn't care and has stopped trying.
Wow.
But so mostly it's been Stephanie Brown here for our folks over at patreon.com/HMP. Bruce, what did you think of Morbius?
I think it's not that bad. And that's never a ringing endorsement. Like nobody wants to put on the poster, not that bad, exclamation point. But it's not that bad. You know, it's a victim of everything has to be 1 star, 5 star. It's not that bad. If I'm in a hotel room and it's playing on cable, I'll leave it on for a little bit. I'll watch it. I had enough fun in the movie. You know, I'm old enough to remember when all I wanted to do is have a little bit of fun here and there. So I'm going to give it a Damian Wayne, maybe our highest rating this week. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm going to say not that bad.
It was a movie put in movie theaters. Bruce Leslie. Sean?
It's a Stephanie Brown for me. It's bad, but it's not, again, it's not the worst thing that's come out. You know, I think the one email had a really great point. I think that New Mutants is a far worse movie than this movie. It's not any good, but that's fine. We review a lot of garbage on this show.
Yeah.
And this is just another one to add to that pile. And, you know, it does feel like a movie from days of yore, you know, the halcyon days of yore. And I think that's kind of the problem with this thing, is that Sony is still making movies the way that they used to make movies. And that's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah, if this was a 2003 film, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing."
Maybe not. Oh my gosh, but there wouldn't be the level of hate. I mean, it's still not a good movie. Even in 2003, this isn't a great movie.
Well,
but
the CGI would probably floor you a little bit, because that's a little bit ahead for 03. But you'd be like, "Oh, it's all right." No, and also you don't remember the amount of stuff that you don't have it to compare it to in 2003. Woo, gigantic.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it is like, it just felt like this was the most paint by numbers kind of thing. Here are the plot points that we've got to get to. We get to those. And like you said, it feels like they've chucked out a lot of the stuff that might have possibly made this interesting. And even though it's like 90 minutes, right? It feels like it's easily 2 hours. It just slogs along at a pace. And
I think it's an hour 50. It's close to 2 hours.
Is it closer to 2? But it's just, I guess everything seems shorter to me now because Batman is 3 hours, and I've been looking at all of these Batman things at the theater and everything, and I'm like, my God, it's so long. And then so when this is like that, I'll go like, that's got to be like 20 minutes long, right? No, it's almost 2 hours. It's just, you're so used to looking at that 3 hour Batman time. But it's a Stephanie Brown for me. I don't hate it, but like I said, like you said, it's not so bad that you're mad at it. It just didn't really do anything with what it had, and it feels like Sony's trying to, put the chess pieces on the board in just the right order, but they're not realizing that they're playing checkers. So they're going to screw it up. That's just how they kind of roll.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's precisely.
I think you described it perfectly there. Actually,
You just
man, it's like everybody wants to play treble, but all we brought was Parcheesi.
You know what I'm saying? Put it together, and there you have.
Man. It's like everybody wants to play Super Mario Brothers, but you brought electric football.
It ain't the same. It just ain't the same. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. We'll talk about what we're doing in just a moment next week. Bruce, what can we find out more of your work on the internet?
Hey, I'd love for people to go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. I got a nice video up there about how Watchmen has influenced Attack on Titan. I think you want to check that one out.
Of course it has.
Hey, let me ask you something. Did you crowbar Alan Moore in there?
No, but there's lots of Zack Snyder.
Sean, what else?
We have a brand new podcast called Moon Knight 30 Questions, where we ask 30 questions about the most recent episode of Moon Knight. We are about to record that right when we're done with this one. And I am looking forward to listening to what those gentlemen think of that show. I like it, but we shall see what they think. I think they're going to hate it.
You never know.
They're not going to hate it.
Last no Morbius.
Last possible second, this literally just came down the line here. Our buddy Chad Hall over at Patreon reviewed Morbius here real fast. I have seen, partially because of this podcast, every theatrically released Marvel movie to date, including Howard the Duck, every Fantastic Four movie, the first solo Wolverine pick, Elektra, Ghost Rider 2, and even those 2 episodes of Inhumans that were released on IMAX. Morbius is by far the worst theatrically released Marvel film to date. For someone who's supposed to be a cult leader, Jared Leto's charm is nowhere near to be found in this under 2-hour slog that isn't scary, exciting, well-directed, or well-shot. And those post-credit scenes, yikes, the Chris O'Donnell of Jason Todd's. So Chad's a no-go on that one, but thanks for the last possible second entry there, Chad.
Chad says to himself, no thank you.
No thanks. Now go check out the Film Find that's out there as well. That'll do it, everybody. Next week, we are going to be talking about a movie that I found. Well, Bruce found the actual the app itself that's called Midnight Pulp. I think it's at least available on the Apple Store. Maybe it's other
also
places
on Roku.
Well. Is it Roku?
Yeah, I
as well?
found it on Roku TV.
Perfect. So we're looking on that. We're trying to find something wild and crazy and different and weird, and I think we may have found that. From 1995, from Japan, it's called Hakaider. Hakaider? Hakaider. I'll find out how to pronounce that word and next week, and then we'll talk all about that and what craziness that has its connection to comic books, and of course Sylvester Stallone. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for that crazy Japanese movie that I cannot pronounce. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Fortress. Stay super, everybody.
I'm Marty and Evie.
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. And someone will say what is lost can never be saved. Despite all my rage, I am still